Okay, this is Steve Van Pelt, and we are just going to do a quick tutorial on EQ. I'm just going to touch on the basics and just really explain what EQing is and give a little bit of instruction on how to do it. Okay, we are looking at the parametric EQ section on a GLD80 console. I have the channel that my mic is going through selected, and so we are looking at the EQ on my vocal mic that I'm talking into right now. What we see here across the horizontal axis is the spectrum of audible sound to human ears, and this ranges from 20 hertz all the way up to 20,000 hertz on the right. This is broken up into 100 hertz segments, 10 hertz segments on the left, 100 here in the middle, and then 1,000 on the right. On the vertical axis here, we can see these are decibel numbers, and this would be a boost in decibels, and this would be a cut in decibels. Below this line, because you can see 0 here in the middle, and so in the middle would be no effect on the audio at all. And so what we can do with an EQ is we can choose a frequency, and let's say we'll do 4,000 hertz, as you can see down here in the bottom, and I'm going to boost that by 12 dB, and you can hear this section here of frequencies are getting louder, as you can see, and that is just that one portion of this audio signal is getting louder. And we can move over to here and we can do the same at around 280, and you can hear that get louder. And we're going to turn that down, and we're going to bring it back here and just leave it right around there. And okay, yeah, let's bring this back up here. And so you can see that we have this section. This is showing the width of the frequencies. So you can see here all the way from about 1,000 hertz up to, ending at 20,000 hertz. We are boosting some frequencies here along that curve right there. We can adjust that here using this setting. It's called the Q on some consoles, or width, and here we are going to make it wider, and it's going to boost more frequencies, and so you can hear more of the surrounding frequencies come up, or we can do less and you can hear less of them right there. So right now we're only boosting that one little area. And so you have really a lot of control. You can see right here, this is how many decibels we are boosting by. This is the frequency, the center frequency that we are boosting. And this is the surrounding frequencies that are boosted as well in this curve. So we're going to bring this back down. And frequencies equalization is used to, it's used for many purposes. Generally, the idea is you want to get the sound, you want to get it to sound better, and you want it to be able to fit into the mix. Sometimes you might want to get something to stick out, and so to that purpose, there's not really a single, there's not a one way to do an EQ. There's not one right way. And so, you can see over here that we've got some of these, someone saved some EQs in here. And these are kind of presets that you can do in a digital console. But the truth is that for a bass guitar, there's not really going to be one right EQ for that, because whoever's playing is going to change, the instrument's going to change, the DI that it's running through is going to change. We are actually, we're in the same room, but sometimes the volume level that we are running things at is going to change, and so all of those are going to affect what EQ we might set on that bass. If we have a small band, we might EQ it one way, whereas if we had a larger band where we needed to fit more instruments into the spectrum, we might EQ it a different way. And so you can see we've got a few things saved in here, but like I said, there's not really one right way to do it, and it's going to change depending on your situation, your instrumentalist, the instruments, and the room that you're in. Okay, and so at this point, I'm just going to give I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a trick on how to do some EQ. So I'm going to flatten out my vocal. So that's completely flattened at this point. And so you can hear that my voice is, it's a little boomy in the low end. You can hear I'm speaking into a Shure Beta 58 that has a little bit of a boost. I think around it sounds like about 1 or 2K, and so you can kind of hear there is some presence in my voice right around 1 or 2K already in the signal. And we could you could probably see that if we looked at it through like an RTA. And so here's what you're going to do. This is a method called sweep and destroy. And the first thing you do is you boost, and you can do this on an analog console or on a digital console. With an analog console, if you have like a sweepable mid-frequency or any sort of a sweepable frequency, you would first boost this with the top knob. It's usually the top knob. You would boost, I try to do like a good amount of boost so where you can hear the change really well. And then you use your lower knob to move the frequency up and down, and you are really just listening for the worst spot or in your sound. And so as we're sweeping back and forth here, I'm listening, and I hear right in here there's kind of some like boomy weird sounds, and so I'm going to say right here is the frequency that I'm going to want to cut. And so now I'm going to take that and drop it down by about 6 dB, and then we're going to do the same thing with another frequency here. We have the luxury of having all of our frequencies being sweepable, so I can go back and forth and sweep back and forth with any of these. But there's like another right in here. It's a little fatter than we need it to be, so I'm going to do a little bit of a cut right there, and then I'm also going to move this high pass frequency over because I don't really like any of the anything lower than around 90 or 100 getting into my vocal channels. That'll avoid some pops or hearing footsteps on the platform. And then to finish it off, I think I'll just go ahead right here, and this is going to be kind of what you saw right at the beginning, but I'm going to do a little bit of a boost right around here at like 1.2. You can go and find, okay, where's what I like to hear. Really we could do up here around 2 or 3, and that would give us a little bit more of that airy sound up there. I guess that's kind of air, and this is a little bit more presence. So you can do it however you want. I think that that does actually sound pretty good. Let's leave it right there, a little after 3. And so there we've got an EQ on a vocal. But you can, honestly, it's a great way to do it with any sort of instrument, whether that be a vocal or electric guitar. If you just boost, put everything flat and then boost one frequency and then sweep it back and forth until you find what you don't like. Another thing is that you can always there's different ways that you can do your EQ. You notice that I didn't do very much boosting here, and the reason why is that it's generally best practice to cut before you boost, and that has to do with phasing. And so because you could see if we were starting off this right here, and I think this is probably a lot of people's first instinct, and I know it was mine when I started off. If I came into a room and I was listening to an electric guitar or a vocal and I couldn't, it was a little bit boomy and muddy or whatever, my first instinct would be to go, okay, well, where is that? I want to hear more of this, and turn that up. But the problem with that is that you're going to end up with you're going to end up with more phasing, which is a bummer. You also really haven't taken care of the actual problem, which is kind of that muddiness over here, which still kind of exists. And so all that to say, the best practice is to cut before you boost. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do my cuts back there again. And then do that little boost over here, like right around 3.5. There we go. And we'll bring that back up. And then the last thing that I'm going to mention is that you can use EQ as a volume knob, and this is not a good thing. And so I've walked into rooms before where there are, very well-meaning techs who have, in order to, I think it's a lot of times, prevent feedback. They've gone, well, there's feedback here, we need to cut it, and there's feedback here, and we need to cut that, and there's feedback here that we need to cut, and it's feeding back here. And so then they've got effectively a signal like this, and what happens, as you can tell right now, is that you can't hear very well what I'm saying. The volume level is really low, and so what you'd have to do actually is go back on the desk and turn the fader or the gain up to make up for this lost gain here that you're cutting. And and then at that point you're back probably to the place where you started with. You're going to be on the verge of feedback again, and so you might as well start here. And and even a lot of times I'll walk in and it won't be as bad. That's like an extreme example that I just showed. But I'll walk in and I'll see something along the lines of this, where I can see like there's just a baseline cut all the way along here of like 6 dB, and you can see that clearly, like we're cutting like 6 dB like across the entire spectrum. And so really, if I just bring everything up by 6 dB, I'm accomplishing the same thing overall, but I'm not doing that unnecessary 6 dB of cut. And so all I have to say is you can use it for as a volume knob, and you don't want to do that. If you're having issues with feedback and you're finding yourself cutting all sorts of frequencies here and there, you better start looking at mic placement, at speaker placement, maybe fine-tuning your EQ a little bit more, and maybe adjusting your volume level to below where it's going to feed back. Maybe your mic choice as well. But EQ is not going to be the way to fix that if you're finding that you're having to cut every frequency. EQ is effective at cutting feedback if you've got like a specific or a couple specific frequencies that kind of are hot spots that are wanting to feed back, and you can definitely cut those. But at some point, you stop making improvements, as you start cutting more and more. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. I know this has been a little bit of a long tutorial, but I hope it was helpful. And if you have questions or if there's something that I missed, please let me know. Thanks a lot.